Hello friends and welcome to the YouTube channel of TBL Education Private Limited, where we help you upskill yourself every day by adding a little bit of value. I'm Xavier Menezes from Mumbai, and today we're going to be talking about company culture. This is the latest video in our module that teaches you how to get started on your startup journey. And at this point, you've already gotten very far into your startup journey. You've built everything that it takes to create your company. You've hired your staff. You have all the tools that you need to start working. But what do you do while your company is functioning, while your company is gathering in sales? A company is not just a machine, it is a collection of people who work together. And to work together, people need a specific environment. Company culture is the process of building this exact same environment, of building a set of beliefs, values, and ideas that characterize how your company will move forward. Different places have different cultures. A place like America, for instance, might have a culture that is very free and liberal, a culture which encourages innovation, a culture which is not particularly tied down. However, other more conservative nations have their own culture, which value traditions and rituals and are following a certain way. Neither is right and neither is better. Both have their advantages and their disadvantages. Company culture is the process of creating one such culture for your company, of deciding what your company needs to be, of how your workplaces need to function, and of how employees interact with your company and perceive your company. In this video, we will be teaching you how to build company culture and understand the ways in which company cultures work. To begin with, there are two types of company cultures. The first is corporate culture and the second is startup culture. Corporate culture is the company culture that has persisted for decades and decades up to the creation of startups that are powerful enough to become corporations in themselves. This is corporate culture as it existed before the Silicon Valley boosts. It is the kind of culture wherein you can visualize people in suits coming to work, people sitting in office cubicles, a very standard office that is completely monochrome. That is the idea of corporate culture that a lot of people have. And to a large extent, this idea is accurate. A lot of corporate companies emphasize professionalism and hierarchies. Newcomers to the company are expected to obey and respect their seniors. They are expected to fulfill their seniors' orders. There is a very high hierarchy in the company, and even if it isn't codified, you are supposed to understand your place in the system. There are certain people that you have to tread lightly around, and there are certain people you can delegate. This is a very complex set of interrelations, and at the core of corporate culture lies getting results. Corporate culture is very pragmatic and result oriented. You need to build relationships with your members and with other people, but it is not 100% necessary. What you really need is to get results and to perform well. To a large extent, corporate culture is also vulnerable to corruption. There are lots of corporate stories wherein workers talk about how their results weren't recognized or how a lot of people ended up gossiping about them or betraying them. It is a culture that can produce very high results if well executed because it works like a machine. But if corporate culture is not properly maintained, then professionalism crumbles. A lot of people either invalidate or disobey a boss who isn't good at ordering people around, or deliberately suck up to tyrannical bosses who force other workers to work according to them. If this kind of culture is not properly maintained, then it will completely and totally collapse. So it needs to be designed with a very efficient idea in mind and constantly needs to inspect itself to make sure that good results are achieved. The second type of culture is startup culture. It is a culture synonymous with a lot of Silicon Valley startups, which wanted to differentiate themselves and create a very different image from corporate cultures. In startup cultures, you don't really have to conform to set rules. You can come to work wearing casual clothes rather than suits. You can sleep at the workplace if you want. Offices are specifically designed to be very airy, very open. They are designed with recreational facilities, and the idea is to put forward a very futuristic, very open workspace rather than a sea of cubicles that is very regimented. Startup culture has a clan like or a family like structure. There is no real question of hierarchy or people being above or below each other because the main idea is merit. The employees are supposed to come together and work like a family. In a lot of startups, particularly in early stages, there's going to be a lot of issues regarding funding and money. As a result, what the employees need is not to work in a hierarchical structure, but to be very open, flexible, and creative. Because the startup can be very volatile. They need to be able to adapt and cooperate with other people. To not blindly listen to anyone, but to all chip in whenever there is a need. As a result, startup culture, even after startup companies are successful, focuses on putting forward an informal image. An image that invites in college students or young workers. People who do not want to go into the corporate system and follow someone's orders till they are 40, after which they get their own post, but people who want their talent to be recognized from the earliest stage. It is fundamentally very meritocratic. At the same time, this informality also has its drawbacks. Startup culture invests a lot in making people comfortable and in letting them have fun. But if it is not professionally maintained, then the startup culture might also collapse. The employees will not have a very good idea of how it means to work in a hierarchy. They might get very complacent, they might start playing fast and loose with the rules. There is a need for discipline even in informal startups. To clarify to employees that while they are like family, there are certain rules and regulations that need to be followed. So, startup culture, for all its informality, needs to realize that there has to be some discipline. Whereas corporate culture, for all its discipline and formality, needs to realize that it has to give people the breathing room to be honest, to relax, and to make some mistakes. Next, I'm going to give you 5 tips for building a great workplace culture. Because a good workplace culture will boost employee productivity across the board and get you great results. So, what are the 5 steps for building a great workplace culture? The first are rituals. Rituals are activities that are regularly and specifically performed every time you come into the company. An example of this is a lot of employees forming a team huddle first thing in the day and saying that they're going to do their best today. This is an example of a ritual that a lot of companies and employees follow. Other rituals could be people high-fiving every time they get good results, or people coming together at a certain point in the day to chat or to sing songs, or to have a certain informal lunch. Every company has its own very specific rituals. Some companies have bells when you walk in and you ring the bell to announce that you have arrived. This serves to announce your arrival and works as a ritual that everyone performs. These rituals create a sense of solidarity in the company. They are regimented, but at the same time, this regimentation is not the kind of regimentation that is forced upon people, but one that encourages them to work together. Just as a sports team has certain team building rituals, certain team building chants, corporate companies also use team building rituals. The second step is values. Values are very important to build a good workspace. If your workspace has values of creativity, independence, and risk taking, you need to push these values forward and make sure that employees understand them. You need to create an atmosphere where risk taking and creativity is rewarded. Specifically, give employees assignments and praise them if they act creative and do unconventional things, whereas telling them that they need to be more innovative if they only play by the textbook. By constantly reinforcing these values, you can condition your employees into understanding and embodying your workplace culture. The third tool is symbols. Like in the image on the right, you can see a big picture, a big poster on the wall that has an inspirational motto. A lot of companies keep around these symbols because when someone walks in every day and sees an inspirational poster, they automatically internalize what is written on the poster. Day in and day out, over time, the value that is written on the poster becomes something that they memorize and something that they see as natural. In this way, you can create subliminal suggestions that affect the psychology of your employees without them even knowing it. Symbols go beyond normal inspirational posters or pictures of a founder. You can even use symbols in terms of workspace design. By creating a very airy, very open workspace, you can boost your employees' productivity. They won't feel suffocated or boxed in a cubicle that is meant to restrain them to a certain spot. On the contrary, they will feel completely free and able to move around to a large extent. This is a type of building and design that creates an effect on every single employee and is a big part of subtle startup workplace culture generation. The next thing that you can do is to have events. A lot of startups have specific events. These could be simple events like drinking parties or brunches, wherein all the employees are invited to go to a place near the startup building and to just sit together and talk about their lives. Not talk about work, but to get to know each other as people. You could also have very loud celebrations of startup employees' birthdays or various other events where people just have fun. You could even have things like casual Fridays or formal Fridays, wherein everyone is encouraged to dress up in a certain way. This creates anticipation in the minds of your employees for future events. It creates this sense of fun and unpredictability, and it makes your startup workplace look exciting. And lastly, you have facilities. A lot of startups invest in facilities that are specifically intended to allow employees to unwind. You could have a bench that is positioned a little near the window if your employees need to sit down and get some air. A lot of startups have ping pong tables or areas where you can play video games for a short amount of time, which allows employees to quickly go into one place, de stress, and come out. Rather than having employees work without a pause 9 to 5, which will only cause them to slack off in their cubicles or at their computers, you give them a formal method for unleashing their stress and for de stressing. And when they use this method, they can do so without feeling furtive or secretive. They can openly admit that they are distracted or tired and act to rectify this. Doing this is helpful for the employee and also for other employees because when they see other employees unwinding, they understand that other people too are vulnerable to getting stressed and that this is not an issue as long as you address it maturely. Other facilities include HR departments and counseling departments for employees who feel particularly tired or employees who are having troubles with work. You could also have various other counseling departments and various other facilities depending on your employees' needs. By creating such facilities, you give your employees options. As a result, they won't act by themselves or do things that are not approvable. That is all for this video. Please don't forget to like, share and subscribe. If you have any doubts or any inquiries, spell them out in the comment section. Remember friends, the TBL education wants to help innovators across the world fulfill their dreams. Thank you very much.